The First Book of Moses, Bereshith, Chapter 1, First Creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Sheshach rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayath, or the Paleo-Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo-Hebrew scriptures.
Donald Trump's historic 12-day war, as it's been known, at least for the last few days, this week in history, 0 Americans killed, the most successful foreign policy outing in American history, a true masterclass from Big Daddy War Books. For 40 years, Iran has been weeks away from developing the bomb. Can you guys see my little bunny ear quotes here? My ear quotes, the bomb. India has the bomb. Pakistan has the bomb. Italy has the bomb. Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands has the bomb. Russia has the bombs. I think North Korea finally figured it out. They have at least maybe a dozen bombs or something. Even Turkey has the bomb. Why has it taken until June of 2025 for Iran to be only weeks away from really having the bomb? Questions in the dark, riddles in the dark. Well, Donald Trump has claimed that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated, while just recently it leaked a preliminary assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the I guess the DIA, suggests the damage was limited, setting Iran back by a few months, which is where they were during the Ronald Reagan administration, apparently, just a few months away from the bomb. And of course, CIA Director John Ratcliffe disagrees, saying it will take years to rebuild. What sources are legitimate, and who, if anyone, can we trust? And then what of all the doomsayers? It's over. World War III is inevitable. Hug your butt goodbye. It seems like there were a few of those in my news feed over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure they were in yours as well. Those get a lot of hits, a lot of likes, a lot of clickbait. And what of all the dispensational end time, pre and mid, post, and every occasion tribbers? Always reading chapter and verse like it's the front page of their morning newspaper. Here they come, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Speak of beating a dead horse. Did Trump show his true colors in his partnership with Israel? Is he truly a puppet for Zionism? How much of the Iran war was stage theater, a script, a movie? Heroes and villains everywhere. Who is the good guy? Who is the bad guy? Who is good or who is badder? And is there a good guy to begin with amongst all the bad people? Did Iran warn the White House before its missile retaliation? And if so, was it a ceremony? First Palestine, then Mexico, now Iran. Not forgetting the LGBTQ plus alphabet. We're coming to the tail end of the Pride Month. How many flags can a liberal wave in a week? That's a question all of us should ask. These are just, of course, some of the questions I want to ask tonight. And to do so, I've gotten the gang back together, most of them anyways, John Q, Graham, and Matthew. Welcome, guys. You might, everyone out there watching or listening, you might remember them, from the Trump assassination attempt last summer. That's the first time I think I kind of got everybody together when we all sat around pretty much asking the same questions, having the same conversation. So thanks for being back, guys. And also, before I forget, this is intended tonight as a call-in show. It's one of the perks of being a Tuck Discord member. I put out a notice earlier this morning on YouTube, give everyone a chance who hadn't signed up on Discord to come on in. And it's certainly not the first time we've done it. We've done it before. We'll do it again. And so if you would like to call in and give your own personal point of view on Palestine, on Zionism, on Freemasonry, Israel, end times, little season, whatever, as it applies to the Trump administration and Iran in this very historic week. Or if you'd simply like to ask a question of my panel, be sure to drop into the Tuck stage on Discord. I will be looking for those hand up signs, and I'll bring you guys up to stage if you guys are interested in talking. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Good to see you guys back.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you don't mind. I had a very long day. I'm wearing my reading glasses now. It's I can't adjust to these. Like, it's 11 o'clock here, guys. I can't adjust to this, and this is but I'm noticing, Matthew, that you have like really nice glasses. I could see your eyes. These are like reflective right here, and you could, like, I don't know, you could see the whole monitor on them. So we'll see how this works. So yeah, guys, let's hear it. Let's talk about this week. And it's been pretty wild. I mean, it's been wild on all fronts. And one of the things you've talked about, John Q, a lot, you like to use the analogy of, from Narnia, the doors are for the dwarves. I think by this time, our serial listeners all know what you mean by that. And I have to state that, this is kind of like, this is the new me. And I like to see these things play out without putting initial judgment on it. And, not really sure how these things are going to turn out. I was very impressed how this turned out. I kind of, kept my opinions to myself, but I kind of was a dwarf these last couple of weeks, not because I'm a dwarf for myself, but it's like it's been hard with all the information pouring in. Just, it's amazing, right? We were in a clearly war situation. Trump called it a war, and you just see the information war from all sides coming in, and I didn't know what to believe on any front. So let's break this down tonight.
Yeah, it was certainly an information war. I mean, maybe there was a real war going on at the same time. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't confirm nor deny that the explosions that we saw on TV, or on X from people's camera phones way off in the distance, and light streaking across the sky were, actual real missiles and real explosions. I cannot confirm that for myself. So, we can just go with the narrative and look at what the narratives are saying and go with the narrative war. And when you do that, you can kind of, step back and not get so sucked up into and caught up into the emotion of it all, and just kind of try to, look at what is being said by different factions and different sides. And one of the things, that I noticed, and you touched on already, is that, for 40 years or so, at least, right, we've been told that Iran is weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon.
I don't mean to cut you off. I've been trying to look at exactly like when it was first announced that they were only weeks away. And I'm pretty sure it was at least by the late 80s. I don't know if it all goes all the way back to the Jimmy Carter administration, but I'm pretty sure like the late 80s, we were all expecting Iran to get the bomb. And then it emerged again in the early 90s. And then, like every 10 years, they come back out and they tell us they're just weeks away from developing the bomb. I remember that was the big thing with Barack Obama. I remember back in the day when it was like everyone was so concerned about him working with Iran because, he was going to pave the way for them to get the bomb.
Yeah, and Barack Obama, while he's saying that, he's sending pallet loads of cash to Iran. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But so yeah, we've been told, that by every single president that Iran is weeks away from the bomb. We've been told that by Israel and Netanyahu. There's a funny video, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so of Netanyahu, at the UN Security Council with this, Roadrunner type, depiction of a bomb with a like. It's like, this. Are you being serious? This is seriously what you're using here to depict how far away Iran is from getting the bomb.
I put that on the cover, of this video. I put a lot of love into it tonight. And yeah, I like how it's like, you kind of look at his bomb graph there, and it does look like something like, was it Acme? That was it. Acme, not Acme, but Acme. And it's like, oh, I get it now. I get what you're saying. Like, that makes sense because I see the bomb, and we're just weeks away. That's one of the great moments, classic moments of Netanyahu.
Yeah. So
why is that not a meme by this point?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Yeah. So the narrative has been, Iran bad. Iran is going to get a bomb. We can't let Iran get a bomb. Israel starts this war, because they say Iran's going to get the bomb, and the narrative that was being, talked about, breathlessly in the mainstream media was that Israel doesn't have the capability of taking out their nuclear program because it's in, these these bunkers and things straight out of the latest the movie Top Gun, latest Top Gun movie, right? It's like, word for word from the Top Gun movie, like, there's only one way that we can take out these bombs, and Israel doesn't have a capability of taking out these bombs.
Which was kind of just I don't know how many people noticed that as much as I really enjoyed Top Gun Maverick. It was a really good movie. It was just a ripoff of the Death Star trench run at the end. It was totally just a ripoff of the Death Star trench run. I think Tom Cruise really was like, he really wanted to be in Star Wars, and he finally got his wish.
Exactly. So anyhow, Israel, they start this war, and, of course, all the neocons in the United States, everyone's like, they're just salivating because now we're finally going to get into another forever war. They've got Trump trapped in entering this forever war because, we have to defend Israel, because if we don't, God will curse us, right? Or, things like that. And finally, Trump just says, fine, we'll take away the narrative reason for having this war. And he does. And it reminded me very much of the move he made with COVID, where he said, fine, we'll take away the narrative, Operation Warp Speed, go. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, repeat that one more time. We've been through this before with Operation Warp Speed, and I know that a lot of the never Trumpers within the red pill movement, and I hope everyone understands that, like, I'm trying to have this conversation as unbiased as possible. I do enjoy talking politics, and nothing, by the way, goes politics better than a glass of wine. So, the two just, it's awesome, right? So I'm sure it's going to go great tonight. Some people, they still, as you guys all know, the three of you you guys are talking about like something with Q, or, you talk about Trump, and then somebody in the room brings up Operation Warp Speed and how, he passed around the vax, all this kind of stuff. And so again, what was your? I mean, how was he flipping the narrative on this?
Yeah. So with this one, right? Kind of the trap they thought they had him in. The trap I would say that the deep state thought they had Trump in was. It's like a Kobayashi Maru moment, so to speak. For like, there was no, like, no matter what he did, you know, it's going to be the wrong answer. And so, if he doesn't do anything, you know, that's kind of showing weakness. If he, you know, sides with Israel, and you know, that's you know, and actually, you know, militarily does something, well, that's, you know, he's a Zionist. If he's, you know, furthering and escalating to World War III, right? You know, so much for his America First policy, you know, all these things. So I think they thought they had him in a narrative trap, to where no matter what he did, you know, he couldn't get out of it. Well, what he did was use their own weapon against them, just like he did with Operation Warp Speed. Was he used their own weapon against them? So with Operation Warp Speed, the weapon that they couldn't argue against, they couldn't, like, in the narrative, in the news, in the mainstream narrative, they couldn't counter the deployment of the weapon of the COVID vaccine, because then they're going to undermine their entire operation, their entire, you know, foundation, right, of what they're trying to do. And I know we're on, you know, certain platforms. I'm going to try to speak in code a little bit here, but so he deploys that, and it basically takes away the story of what the true agenda was. Or the true agenda was perpetual lockdowns, economic collapse, civil unrest, you know. So basically Trump does the same thing, where he deploys military force, probably potentially something they didn't think that could happen without, you know, maybe a plane getting shot down or something happening, you know, and then escalating further and further. He deploys this, and indications are that this was really all pre-coordinated with Iran. I mean, if you look into what happened, Trump had mentioned in an interview with Maria Bartiromo back in 2024 during the campaign. He talked about how in his first term, when they took out Soleimani, Iran called him and said, we have to counter for our people. Like, we can't appear weak in front of our people, so we have to strike back. We're going to fire some missiles at your base over here. Don't worry, it's not going to hit your base. Trump said, okay, go ahead. And they did that. Now, a couple weeks before this happened, Trump was talking about how, you know, hey, we could take out, let's make a deal here. We could take out, we could bomb an empty lab with nobody in it. Nobody has to get killed, right? He was talking about that. Well, what happened? We took out empty labs with nobody in them. Nobody got killed. So I think this is pre-coordinated. I think this is all part of a deal that you're seeing in the news today and yesterday. You're seeing some of the things about the deal coming out. I think this is all part of a deal that has already been worked out, and they're just playing out narratively. They're playing out, you know, how is Iran going to destroy their nuclear enrichment facilities? Well, you could just, you know, have it to where it's, you know, you have the inspectors going in and they, you know, they do all this stuff, or you could just have a war and they get taken out.
You know, one of the things that I think you're saying, John Q, and I know that this is something, Matthew, you wanted to touch on too, with the white hats in Iran. In some ways, it's like, I think it's pretty profound, because one of the things I appreciate, John Q, is I watch somebody say something like, you know, the whole world's a stage, and it's, you know, it's all like they're all they're all in on it and stuff like that, or it's, it's a hoax, and you're like loving the comments and stuff like that, because you're like, yeah, the world is a stage, but you're telling it from a very kind of flipped perspective. And I was going to say something here, but oh yeah, so this is one of the moments, I think the moment where, because I was watching a lot of the footage pretty closely this week. It was one of those things that when this happened, I'm like, okay, here we go. It was similar to the assassination attempt last summer. Now, the difference with that back then is that I put all my work on hold, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to write this big paper on this. I didn't do that this time. I was working on my other work, but I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking, okay, because I've been listening to you guys for the last couple of years. I'm like, okay, maybe Trump, I wrote that paper on like the time travel and all that kind of stuff. Trump, I'm like, okay, maybe he really is trying to take these people out. I could see both sides of this, but there was a moment there where I'm like, oh man, I was like really disappointed. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? Israel's tugging him on the leash. They're calling on their boy, and he's got to come in and do their dirty work, right? But I kept my silence. I didn't, decry anything. I didn't do any, fear porn, anything like that. And I was just kind of watching it. And it was that moment when he gets up there and he drops the bomb, the F bomb, right? And see, the thing is that like it was perfectly executed. There are some things that cannot be expressed except by that word. I mean, fact of the matter, right? You're in a war situation. It expressed everything when he dropped that on camera. And he was like, he was so agitated at Israel. He's agitated at Iran, but he was just letting Israel have it. Big Daddy Warbucks was angry. And I'm like, there it is right there. Like this guy, like you could totally see in that moment where he's in this tough situation. He's dealing with Israel, the big bad guy, right? He's dealing with Iran, the big bad guy. He's caught in the middle. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's almost like no way out of this. And yet he was brilliantly able to maneuver his way to the other end. So, Matthew, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you wanted to talk a lot about the John Q, you had already mentioned. You said that it's in the mainstream news. That Iran called, I guess, the White House, called Trump up and be like, okay, we're gonna drop some bombs on your base. And he was like, okay, cool. And of course, no one was hurt. So it seems pretty ceremonial. And then, Matthew, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I want to start with overgeneralizations. So we want to avoid those. So there's good sides, there's good people and bad people in every nation. And so when you talk about the movie dynamic, there's the good and there's the bad. And so a good example of the bad would have been what we were talking about previously with let's pick a bone, a femur. Not the funny bone, but the femur camps, and they had a bunch of coffins ready to go. And so if you know what that was about, they had everything ready to go in a certain direction, and that's the bad guys, if you will. But the good guys carried through with the Operation Warp Speed, putting it through so fast that they couldn't get the testing done in time to make it absolutely like you have to have these or you're going somewhere else. Not the funny bone. So with that in mind, when we have the issues that are going on right now, and you had Israel ask Trump to go ahead and help them with blowing up these facilities. There was one facility that they wanted to have blow up. And I would typically say that this would be from a bad angle perspective. Trump says, I'm going to take care of all three. What that does is it eliminates the excuse to have war. You have zero excuse for them to go ahead and have war. This was disturbing for the deep state in both Iran as well as in Israel. And I'm not going to name names and who's who and whatever. But there is disruptions and the bad guys are leaving. There are people in, for example, in America, when we were having the protests, there were Israelites that were protesting against Zionism and saying they're not of us. And they were raising Palestinian flags. I watched a video of that. There's also another reference to when the attacks were going on in Iran, the three nuclear stations, if you will. Don't recall the term. When they were being destroyed, there were people in Iran that were Iranians who were actually rejoicing because they know how bad it could have been, and they knew that this was made for peace. So there are people that are in these situations, apart from how the media spins it, who recognize that there are good things happening. It looks bad, but scare event is necessary. So I think everything's going to come to a head. We see a lot of corruption that's being taken care of in certain countries. There's another country that'll be reserved for later, and all in all, there's good and bad everywhere. But it's nice to see how the movie is playing. I'm excited. I feel that there's a lot of hope for the good guys winning. Obviously, who wins in the end. So how does that play out here and now? So I'll end with that.
I mean, obviously, in the spy versus spy game, I use that analogy a lot, and never thought it'd be come in such good use as in the 21st century. I used to love that as a kid. It only makes sense that they're going to have, intel in all different countries, right? They're going to be working with everyone they can, including in Iran, and maybe in Israel. I don't really know how that works with Mossad. So, question for all of you: Will the because I don't think the Federal Reserve is not in. Let's see, it's still not in North Korea, still not in Iran. Where is it? What other countries is it not in at this point? It's only a few.
I think they're the last two. I really think the other ones have been taken care of.
Yeah.
So will it be installed? Do you guys think will it be installed in Iran?
Well, I think so. I think the war on the central banking system is tied to forever wars, but there's another weapon. So it used to be that if we were going to go to war with Iran, we were going to literally invade this country and do a regime change and install a central bank. That didn't happen with North Korea during Trump's first administration. That did not happen with North Korea. You remember all the fun with the big beautiful buttons, and my button's bigger than your button, and my button actually works, and all that stuff. So we didn't go in and do any regime change in Korea, and he's still there. Here, we haven't gone in and done any regime change in Iran. Now, interestingly enough, that is what Israel's goal was. There is an article in the Jerusalem Post that is talking about how Mossad had infiltrated for decades. They've been infiltrating Iran. They have all different levels, and their goal for this conflict was to do a regime change, make it look like it was the people rising up, but then they would be installing their own puppet in Iran. And I think with what Trump did he cut that out from underneath him when he took out the nuclear facilities. Like Matthew mentioned, Israel was concerned about one. They wanted one specific one taken out. Trump took out all three. Now there's no reason for a war. And I mentioned this pre-show that immediately there was a counter narrative deployed by the CNN and the Fox News, basically saying, oh, well, we have this leaked intel report that was not finished and was a draft, and it's not something you can do. You can't do a battle damage assessment that quickly anyway. But that it's might not be, they might not have completely destroyed them, right? So you saw that immediate counter narrative get deployed against the narrative that the Trump administration was putting out there of it's done. There's no reason to continue having this war, and in all caps on True Social, BB, turn your planes around now, kind of thing, right? So, yeah. So no, I don't think we're going to see a central bank in Iran, but I don't know. I mean, but I do think there is another weapon that's being waged against the central banks, and that weapon is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. That was the last time we got together too. It was actually the first time Jenna came on. That was 2 or 3 months ago. We did the whole Bitcoin thing. So, will the crown prince of Iran be brought in? I mean, will there be a regime change, you guys think, or is it going to stay the same? I mean, this is obviously you can't possibly know, but I'm curious your thought. What is his name? Is it Reza Pahlavi or something? I can't remember what his name is, but the crown prince of Iran. I think he's in the UK right now.
That guy, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about him, but he appears to be like a kind of a deep state puppet. There is an interesting Q drop for with tomorrow's Delta, and let's see if I can share my screen. Let's see here. So this is a Q drop from June 27th, 2018. So
Well,
7 years ago.
I could see if I could bring it up. Let's see what block all of us. That works.
There we go. So this is June 27th, 2018. And it says, "We stand with the good people of Iran who are currently battling their installed, in quotes, regime for freedom. True rule, the people have the power. Rise up and demand they be removed. At some point, military generals will act with the will of the people simply because their soldiers are those same people who have no choice. We stand with you. We are monitoring the situation closely. Stay safe. God bless Q." So I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. It's tomorrow, is the 27th. We'll see if something happens tomorrow around regime change. But we definitely know that that Israel is trying to implement a regime change there.
Right. So what is I do like how you guys are calling it the forever wars that they wanted. And it seemed like that was in Trump's, F-bomb message where he stated that he said something like they've been fighting this war for so long that they don't know, what the F they're doing. Yeah. It kind of reminded me there, like, it seemed like even though it felt like he lost his cool in that moment, when you really look at what he was saying, it just feels so like he was in the moment, like he knew what he was saying, what he was doing. Matthew, I wanted to cover really quickly. Now, Graham, I want you to jump in here. Matthew had talked about that, like, why exactly did he blow up all three facilities? Aside from the fact of getting out of forever war, was there a specific reason for doing that?
It's in general, it got rid of like all the capability to put it together quickly. So it would postpone their nuclear abilities for quite some time. And if it was only the one that was destroyed, they could still say, hey, they're going to come up with a nuclear bomb, in a week or a month. But by destroying all three, you eliminate the one argument that the deep state of Israel had, was that they're going to come up with a bomb over and over again for like the past 30 years nearly. So that eliminated the argument, because even if they could go ahead and put it together, like if they had buried nuclear services and whatnot, they wouldn't be able to do anything with them, let alone being able to. It's not a power play that they had, and because it's not a power play that Iran had, Israel couldn't use that as an excuse to go to war with them.
So yeah,
I think this is yet more kind of evidence that Trump is not one of them, because he's cutting off the reason for a forever war, right? Cutting it off the head, as opposed to, maybe just, oh, we're going to do this little strike, take out one of them, but the reason continues on. Like, yeah. So narratively, like, he's ending the reason for another forever war.
Okay. I have to, at this point, I guess I've already lost so much viewership over this. I guess, I don't even care anymore. But I have to, I'm kind of in this with you guys now. And I said that there's been kind of moments, where I kind of go back and forth because I'm listening to both sides, and, with the assassination, for example, was one where there were moments in there where I'm like, okay, this isn't real. It's not really happening. And then he's just one of them. And then there's other moments where I'm like, I don't know. And I had that moment this last couple of weeks with this war. I'm like, okay, I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, okay, yeah, He's one of them. He's just right there with. Let me just say really quickly here, and I'm going to lose my train of thought. What I'm saying, but he actually shared on, or he actually it's not retweeted. It's on Truth Social, so it's called Retruth. But Mark Levin, he posted all these quotes from Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. Bill Clinton says, here, let me see if I can actually bring this up to the stage and you guys can see this. Give me a second here. There it is. You see, Bill Clinton says, we are determined to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, 1995. George W. Bush, Iran must not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, period, 2006. Barack Obama, I have stated that Iran will never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. It's kind of interesting that you see Barack kind of on the defensive there because, he's going in kind of helping Iran with stuff. He's like, no, assuredly, they will never get the weapon. They will never get the bomb. And, of course, Joe Biden, we will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. And, of course, Donald J. Trump, he goes in there. And he says, Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Thank you for your attention to this matter, 2025. There were some moments in here where I'm like, oh, yeah, he's one of them. But I have to agree with you guys now that, like, coming out the other end of this, we don't know what tomorrow holds, right? We don't know what next week holds, but this was so perfectly executed. There have been so many times where I've stated almost jokingly that he has some sort of scrying mirror, where he some sort of time travel capabilities where he could see in the future. And I came to the other end of this and it was so perfectly executed. I'm just like, unless if this is all faked and scripted, which some people are just going, come on, Noel. Yeah, it is. I'm like, there's no possible way this could happen in the way that it did. I mean, Ronald Reagan couldn't have pulled something like this off. And so amazing. I want to talk about, go ahead.
Can I jump in real quick?
Please.
So yeah, our perspective is a little different than your typical truther who does think everything is scripted. And I'm sure we were all in that camp before. But the difference being typical conspiracy theorist or truther thinks everything is scripted by the enemy. But the way that we're perceiving this is you got good guys and bad guys. And this particular script is one of the good guys that's playing out. And I'm with you on the whole concept of the scrying mirror or the time travel technology or whatever. But, it also could be, it's a matter of perspective. It could very well be that many of these things have been resolved already. And now what we're looking at is the narrative, it's the storytelling aspect that the general public needs to be able to comprehend and accept what's going on. So perhaps this perfect execution, everything went flawlessly, is because of just that it's actually all the capitulation has happened, the agreements have been made, and it's just being presented to the general public now in story form.
Yeah, that's a great point, because how do you transition the public programming and narrative that's been instilled in them for the last 30 plus years of Iran is going to bomb us all with their nuclear weapons, to how do you get to the point of Iran and every other country is developing and implementing nuclear energy? You got to get from point A to point B somehow.
Well, this is what I had stated earlier tonight, like 20 minutes ago or so, when I said, to you, John Q, that I observe you online, and people will come in and be like, this is all just a scripted hoax, and you're kind of like nodding along, and I see what you're doing there. And what you had just said, Graham, that like they had already, the idea is that they've already come to a resolution, right? Iran, this is where it was kind of ceremonious, where Iran's like, okay, fine, we'll shoot some missiles back, right? Because we're not going to go down like a, BITCH or whatever. We're gonna kind of, fight back a little bit, but it's all, it's not legitimate. But it's a different type of war going on in the media than just everyone's reading from a back script in the back room. Hopefully everyone can kind of understand what's going on there. I do want to transition tonight. Of course, you guys can come back and touch on anything we haven't already. Talk about the Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson moment that went viral. And I mean, I'm just laughing my butt off just watching it. It was a great exchange between Tucker. He just has that Tucker face, that robotic, Disney animatronic face that he gives. And maybe that's, maybe I'm being literal there. I don't really know. And they're this exchange where Ted Cruz is like, what did he say? Something like, the Bible says that you have to bless Israel, and we have to bless Israel. And Tucker Carlson, he's not saying like chapter and verse, but he's like, where does it say that in the Bible? And
what's great was Tucker actually did. So Tucker was pushing him on like, why do we have to, just blindly support Israel, basically. And he's like, Ted Cruz is like, I grew up in Sunday school learning. It was just taught to me in Sunday school, right? He used a Sunday school term, but that the Bible says that God will bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel. And Tucker's like, where does it say that? Like where? And he's like, I don't have the right chapter verse right in front of me, but and Tucker's like, it was Genesis 12. That's where it says that. Like, so Tucker knew where it was, and then Tucker knew the context too of Yahweh is talking with Abraham, but yeah, go ahead. No, I interrupted.
Well, no, you didn't interrupt me. It's funny that, with Ted Cruz, I think he was almost shocked in that moment because as a politician, nobody had really, definitely within evangelicalism had ever fought back with that, like had ever questioned that. I think he was so used to just peddling that line, and it served him so well. And it's amazing that, Tucker pulled back on that. But just being here, I'm of course here in the UK right now, and there's been some a little bit of culture shock. And the thing is, when you go to other countries, you always expect culture shock, but it's never really what you expect it to be. It's always something different. Like the things I expect to be shocked at, I'm not. And it's interesting to I've been visiting a lot of cathedrals. I've been visiting a lot of the Church of England, which of course is state sponsored. King Charles, it comes from the top. But you go in and they all basically, like, their prayers are that they want to be a light to the Gentiles, and they refer to themselves as Israel, that God's only children is Israel, right? Of course, in Scotland, it's the same way. All over the world, they have this understanding of who Israel is, and it's not a plot of land over there. It's a spiritual seed of people being grafted in. And just to talk to the British people here, and they have a very clear understanding of that. You go back to America, and you try to tell people that you're Israel, and they look at you like, what are you a Jew? Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you're Israel? Like, this is the complete failure of pastors, of seminary students or professors or whatever in America, where they can't even teach this message of what it is to be grafted in and who Israel is, right? And when you, of course, realize that is a complete paradigm shift, a change to understanding that, even if we don't go down the trail of who the Ashkenazi are, of course, Ashkenaz, you can see in Genesis, he's actually a son of Japheth. That's a little awkward. He's not a son of Shem, a Semite. But that aside, it's like someone who is Israel is someone who's being obedient to the commands, is in a covenant relationship with Yahweh. And you go to Israel today, and it is more liberal than America. It is people who grow up in the schools there say it's worse than the public schools in America. They teach you to deny the Bible. It's, like LGBTQ central in Tel Aviv. Like, this is not the Israel that evangelical society is advertised. Mm-hmm. Now, on that very awkward note, maybe we can even get a little bit more awkward tonight. And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on Palestine, and just honest opinions. I'm curious where you guys stand on that. The whole what was it? It was in was it 2023? I think it was. Was it October when I don't even remember the date. That's just goes to show how much I'm not following all the news cycles. When it was on a high holy day, I know that. I don't know if it was atonement. I don't know if it was Sukkot or what, but it was on a Sabbath. It was on a high holy day that they stormed in Palestine and they Hamas, and they killed a lot of people. I know a lot of that was put into question, and it seemed very scripted on video, that kind of stuff. But then we break into this whole thing where undoubtedly what is I don't think what is doubted is that Palestine is just blasted into pretty much oblivion. So do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna be what was
My
it?
videos, my channel's already shadow banned, guys. So
Yeah,
just don't
Yeah.
fret it. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we saw earlier this year when Bibi was in DC at the White House, and Trump was talking about Gaza and making it a luxury resort and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we saw Bibi's kind of shock reaction and like, pushing back on that. I do think that that part of this whole and I haven't been keeping up on the news on Palestine as much today as or this past week as much as what's been going on with Iran and everything. But I do think that they're working on a deal. I think there was a story that came out of there's going to be some additional nations added to the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
If one of those nations is Saudi Arabia, I think one of their non-negotiables is basically a two-state solution, what have you, with Palestine and Israel. And so, yeah, I don't know what's all going to happen, but I think if I gun to my head, I would say, yeah, we're going to get sort of the free Palestine, so to speak, is probably going to happen.
Well, hopefully nobody's putting a gun to your head. Yeah, it was okay. Yom Kippur, October 7th, 2023. Thank you, Elohim's Medicine, for pointing that out. And I just want to interject here that anybody who is listening live right now, I had opened up Discord for anyone who wants to do voice. And obviously with this kind of discussion, maybe people don't want to. We had talked about this last Friday night, and not too many people even in a private conversation wanted to speak up. But if you guys want to put any questions or comments in here that I could read off live, by all means, please do. Just keep it, please, civil and not rude. Here's my thing with the somebody had put in here that they are European Jews are converts, they are fake Jews that Jesus talks about. So here's my thing on this. I used to really kind of hammer this down a few years ago, and I've kind of changed my opinion a little bit. Here's my thing is that everybody has a right to be a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, whatever denomination you want. I mean, you have to allow this in order to have a free world. If we want to be able to have our freedom of religion, right? Basic American Constitution 101. The only thing that my only desire is that they would, like, if somebody wants to be like, that you could be Japanese, you could be South African, you could be Canadian, you could be whatever. You'd be like, hey, I want to be a Jew. Cool. You want to be a Jew? You want to be grafted in? You want to go through all the ceremonies? Fine. Become a Jew. Become a Talmudist. Become a Kabbalist. Whatever you want. My only wish for the Ashkenazi is that they would kind of have more of an honest conversation of being like, yeah, you know what? We're actually not the Jews from the Bible. There's actually nothing that could prove that. We have nothing tracing us back. Maybe let's take some DNA tests. I don't even know if you could prove it at this point. And actually, I've kind of changed my opinion in the sense that when I started doing all the research of the Vandals, the Goths, the Saxons, the different groups in the 400s or 500s that were going in and sacking Rome, and learning that all the research out there that these were actually different tribes of Israel, Dan and Reuben, you go down the list. They're all coming from the same regions of the world, the Black Sea regions over there, and north of like the Kingdom of Armenia, which would be like north of Turkey today, and kind of east of Germany, west of Russia, all in that area right there, all in the same places, which is where Ashkenaz came from. And I'm just thinking, like, honestly, at the end of the day, I really don't know if maybe they are a tribe of Israel. Maybe it's not Judah. Maybe it's, whatever. Just pick your tribe, Naphtali or whatever. I haven't the faintest clue. So I've really kind of pushed back on that. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow night. I want to get this on t-shirts. As Paul says in Romans chapter 2, it's not about being an outer Jew. It's about being an inward Jew. And we're actually all supposed to be an inward Jew. So at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And whatever. People can call themselves whatever they want. But either you're an outer Jew or an inward Jew. It's one or the other. Whatever. So
yeah, it's not necessarily that you're this fleshly descendant of Abraham. It's that you're a child of the promise, right? That's what Paul says that in I think it's Romans 9, right?
Yeah, and here's kind of a little bit of maybe it's cognitive dissonance. I don't know. Everybody listening to this right now probably are on board with me with the Millennial Kingdom Research Little Season. You're looking into it. You believe it is true. Maybe you have different viewpoints on it. But if you do believe that the Millennial Kingdom happened, then you also believe there was a huge fire reset event. There was a huge destruction event, a reset. And as I pointed out many times, is right around the 500s when even genealogists will look back and go, there's nothing really beyond the 500s. There would seem to be like, all seed is coming through these genetics. And so at the end of the day, like when we talk about Ashkenaz and all this kind of stuff, like guys, they're coming through the same channels as everybody else, most likely. So, sometimes when we start kind of connecting pieces of research, other things that maybe we believed were true, maybe they're not as true anymore. That's going to anger some people, but that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so let's talk about, anyone else want to throw in anything about Ted Cruz and the Blessing Israel statement?
I'll throw something in about Palestine.
Please do.
So Kim Iverson points this out. When you look into Ezekiel 38, and even within our theology concerning end times eschatology, there is the battle of Gog and Magog, and what does that look like? And then the 5 nations that surround, the nation of Israel. And so when we look at the nation of Israel in that terms of Ezekiel 38, if that is to be put towards that time, which is debatable, I'm sure, like all things can be, how is that going to happen? Is that going to surround the nation of the current Israel? Because it is saying that it does surround Israel. Does it surround Israel, the people? Because Israel as a people is everywhere. As we state, like, who actually is Israel. So then you got so many ways to look at that. But if you were to look at a certain place, as controversial as this is, what if it's not the nation of Israel? What if it's actually Palestine that gets surrounded and then the miracles happen? Because it talks about an unwalled country, if you will. It's a peaceful, loving country. So now Palestine is completely not innocent of, being somebody who's at peace. But they have Christians and Muslims and Jews all living together at peace, like loving each other. And so then when you look at how that's all actually incorporated versus like other places that are like keen on destroying other nations and are causing chaos everywhere, it just seems like it's more likely to be a nation that's not the current nation of Israel that it would be talking about in eschatological terms, being the battle of Gog and Magog that is at the end of the world. So if it is a specific place, I would say that it's probably not Israel that it states in that sense. And another thing to note is Palestinians, they have more of their population that actually has actual Jewish blood that can be, the lineage of Shem versus, well, probably the fault of the sheer amount of Ashkenazis, which I believe is, well, it's going to be Ham or Japheth. But the Ashkenazi Jews cannot trace their lineage back to Shem there. So that's just an interesting side note, quite a theory to go through. But Kim Iverson is currently continuing to present different cases and scenarios on those lines of Palestine might actually be the place that gets surrounded and then saved miraculously through fire and all that stuff that's written in Ezekiel 38.
Now that obviously is a story twist that Palestinians are more likely Jewish descended than the Jews in Israel, which is pretty crazy to think about. But stranger things have happened. Here's my whole thing. I'm just going to say this. This is going to be the most probably hated thing I'm going to say tonight. Is, I know that Israel is the bad guy in a lot of ways. And I probably shouldn't even say in a lot of ways. Israel is the bad guy. I have a lot of questions in my mind about who is truly running the world. Is it Rome? Is it Israel? You guys can weigh in on that. Anyone listening, you guys can weigh in on that too. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it could be some pimply faced kid in a bagel shop in Pasadena on a laptop, and he's running the world. Is Israel a pet project of Rome, or is Zionism running Rome? Right? That those, who's running the Jesuits, who's running the Freemasons, all that kind of stuff. What I do know is that they all exist, and I think it's kind of a guessing game as to who is doing it. But all that being said, I do want to find out tonight what you guys' thoughts are on the future with Trump, because he was kind of in this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. He was drug into this war. He had to work with Israel, and that's what I wanted to get out earlier. That it was kind of like, he's one of them. He's working with them. And then at the end of it, he perfectly executes this. He ends the forever war. It was brilliantly executed. But when you're looking at how much Israel has completely pulverized Palestine, I'm supposed to get in line with a bunch of woke college kids and decry that. And it seems like that mentality is very common within the red pill movement. That's something the red pillars and woke seem to kind of agree on. And I'm not completely there. As far as I'm concerned, there's all this propaganda out there of the sheer amount of hospitals and children and mothers and these kind of things, schoolyards that have been destroyed by Israel, and they're going in and killing all these citizens. And it seems to be kind of propped up on this idea of, Zionism is evil, right? So of course you're going to do these things. But I personally think if somebody is going to come into my house, that's not even the best example. But let's just play with that, for example. If somebody is going to come into my house and I'm going to grab my wife or my kids and use them as a human shield and then, use a gun, it's almost like that scene of RoboCop, right? Where the guy he's raping the woman and RoboCop goes up, and it's a really feel-good moment. Some people, I guess ladies, if you're sensitive, cover your ears for this, but, it's a feel-good moment when, he like shoots under her dress and gets the guy in the balls, right? And everyone is like, that's justice, right? He got the rapist, that guy was a coward to use her as a human shield. And my whole thing on this is that if these Hamas terrorists are going to use, even if they're funded by the same people, even if they're funded by the CIA, whatever, but if they're going to use civilians as human shields, like that is the most cowardly thing. I have no respect for anybody who does that. Like no respect, zero zip. Done, over. Don't even want to hear from them. If you're going to do that, like they should be bold enough as warriors to go out and face them, as much as Israel has this high tech ability to take them out with, whatever Iron Dome and everything else they got. I don't know. You guys tracking with me? This is what I was kind of going at. What are your guys' thoughts? Should they be completely condemned for what they're doing? Are they in any way justified? Or is it just, our tax dollars on both sides?
Yeah, I certainly think we don't just blindly support Israel, like, whatever they want to do, we just blindly support it because Genesis 12. I do think that there are some good people who live in Israel, just like, and there's definitely some pretty wicked people, especially in some of the agencies like Mossad and what have you. Just like here in our country, we have both. We have good people living in our country. We have good and bad people in our agencies like the CIA and the FBI and what have you. So I think there's that war between good and evil is going on. It's been going on ever since the garden, and it's going on in Israel. It's going on in our country. It's going on in every country. Yeah, we can't blindly support them. We can't just blindly condemn either. We can't just lump everyone into the same category.
Yeah, no, one of the problems with Palestine is I've been there twice now. I went the first time I was 19, spent 3 months there, staying in Beit Jala, which is just kind of west of Bethlehem. It's the suburbs of Bethlehem. And then I went again in 2006. And the first time I went, there was no wall. Bethlehem, Beit Jala was almost, I wouldn't say entirely Christian, but it was mostly all Christian. It was just Christian presence. Maybe it's because I was 19 years old and I was young. I didn't have a family. It might be very different now, but I would just go walking the streets late at night, jogging up and down the streets, going to the Church Nativity, the Shepherd's Field, all these places, felt completely safe. It was great times. There was a lot of hope for the future. And then the wall went up. I went back in 2006, just so 6 years later. And I went back to my old stomping grounds, kind of want to revisit it. There was like a terrorist parade going on, people walking around with rocket launchers and machine guns. They looked at me and they tried to corner me. I was able to escape down an alley, true story, and get out of there. And it must have been a guardian angel with me. Completely different. The Christians were all run out. It was predominantly Christian. They're all run out. I've seen the reports. I could report on it myself. I hear like in Lebanon and Syria, predominantly Christian, completely gutted. I don't know what it was like in Iran before the 1970s. I highly suspect there was a lot of Christians there, and I would highly suspect there are almost zero Christians there now. So, I mean, that's kind of the sad thing where you have, and it seems like a lot of the people who are support of Palestine against Israel, I watch a lot of videos. I love like debate videos on college campuses, and I like hearing what all the woke kids, all the cool kids out there are saying nowadays. And they most of them will hands down admit they'll be like fully support of Palestine against Israel, but they will admit that the government of Palestine has to go. Like, this is a terrorist organization that is just done, irreparable damage. Maybe I beat that in, that dead horse tonight. Unless you guys want to throw in anything more on that, let's talk about eschatology. Let's go there. And Ted Cruz didn't really go there. He talked about the blessing of Israel, but I'm sure you guys have seen it. I'm sure everybody listening has seen it. Like, you can milk a lot of views every single time there is some sort of Iron Dome situation. As soon as like a missile goes over Jerusalem, you see it. It's everywhere. This is prophecy. It's going down. They're nuking Israel, whatever. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Matthew sort of opened that can of worms a little bit a few minutes ago. It's, of course, my take on Gog and Magog, and I think all of us here agree that we're pretty sure that the millennial reign already happened, that we're now living in the Satan's short season of deception, where he's gathered from the four corners of the earth an army to march up on the camp of the saints. And kind of Matthew was talking about who is Israel in that context, and kind of my take on that is, and it aligns with what the New Testament says who Israel is, who is grafted in. And, it actually kind of makes a lot of sense that Christianity is behaving like Israel of old, in that they're forgetting the commands, right? In this short season of deception, like that fits like a glove.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I would say that believers, Christians, those who say Christos Kyrios, right? Jesus is Lord, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Lord of my heart, Lord of my life. Yeah, a lot of them are deceived and have been deceived, and are not fully keeping the commands. But a lot of them keep the commands without knowing it. So I would say that Israel is believers, just like Paul would say, and that we're grafted in. That's who Israel is. And so when John in Revelation chapter 20 is talking about kind of that last great and final battle, and he's writing to a predominantly Jewish audience. So you have to, when you're reading Revelation, the entire book of Revelation, you have to keep that in mind. Who is he writing to? And a lot of the things that he talks about, a lot of his apocalyptic language is a Jewish audience would understand what he's talking about. And he throws in a little sort of almost a side comment there, Gog and Magog. It's bracketed in commas, and I think that's a Jewish audience then basically would understand what he's meaning. Basically, he's saying is this last great and final battle is going to look like what Gog and Magog looked like, because it already happened. He's referencing something that happened during the reign of Xerxes, when Esther was his queen. And so, I think essentially, and I've gotten into this in depth on some of our other shows we've done, but essentially that Ezekiel 38, that's already been fulfilled. It was fulfilled during the time of Esther. And I think what John in Revelation is saying is, hey, what this kind of last battle, so to speak, where the enemy doesn't even get off a shot, it's going to look like, it's going to be reminiscent of the Esther story, where the enemy's traps are laid and they essentially get taken out by their own traps.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Roadrunner and Willie Coyote cartoon.
Yeah.
That does make sense when you look at Revelation 20, verse 9, where it says, and they went up on the breadth of the earth and encompassed the camp of the Kodashim, or the saints about, and the beloved city. Where it says the Gog Magog, wait, where was that part? Sorry, in verse 8. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle. That he's saying it as a comparison, like it's Gog and Magog style, where the enemy, like Noel said, the enemy set the trap and they're just utterly overwhelmed and destroyed. And that's what the final battle is going to be like.
This is the one thing that I now completely disagree with a lot of the red pillars out there who are stating that everything is a scripted hoax. Everything. Now, we've already discussed this tonight, and John Q kind of giving a kind of a flip, and Graham, you had touched on it too, that maybe with the Iran situation, the quote unquote 12-day war, whatever it's going to be called in the future, I don't really know, that they may have already settled this beforehand, and they kind of had to play it out for the media, which is a little bit different than what the other side is saying. But what I point out to people all the time, and they're like, everything is a hoax. It's all a script. You're just being fooled into this, is that they completely take out Satan's very character. and that is arrogance and pride.
Mhm.
And we can do a Bible study on what pride does. I have seen pride. I think we all have, and I've seen it in real people in real time. And it's a terrible thing to behold because it blinds them. It completely blinds them to the point that you could be standing right before, well, I guess I can't prove this, what I'm about to say is, but I think you could stand right before the throne of Yah himself and be an atheist. Like, you can go to that levels of darkness where you just don't see it. And so we have to remember that everyone, out there who are scheming against Yah, we know this is the greatest conspiracy, according to Psalm 2, the kings of the earth conspire against Yahweh, that they are in the darkness and they are blinded to their own pride. And that is why I love the illustration of like Willie Coyote getting smacked in the face, whatever. He's prepared the trap, the Acme trap down on the road. He's painted like the tunnel with the road, whatever. And then like a real truck drives out and runs him over or whatever. And he just can't believe it. But, they think like, of course they're going to win. How in the world can they get steamrolled in this situation? And then you see something so perfectly executed. I'm still in awe of it. This week, what happened? I wanted to. Here's speaking of which, I don't know how. I was just going through Truth Social Media, Trump's account earlier today, kind of preparing for tonight, looking at stuff, and I have to say I can't believe how much this guy actually tweets. If he is indeed, if Trump is indeed tweeting all this stuff, I mean, I couldn't in my day tweet this much. I don't really have a big social media presence, but I did want to read this. I thought this was pretty funny. And I think he did this right after. So this was June 26th. Wait, no, it was edited June 26th. Wait a second. He would have done this maybe a couple days ago, but yeah, I'm going to read this because this was just, I found this just amazingly comical. And he says, stupid AOC. And then he explains, in case you don't know who AOC is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the quote unquote air quotes dumbest people in Congress, is now calling for my impeachment, despite the fact that the crooked and corrupt Democrats have already done that twice before. I love how he just capitalizes like random words, like he capitalizes crooked and corrupt Democrats. The reason for her rantings is all of the victories that the USA has had under the Trump administration. The Democrats aren't used to winning, and she can't stand the concept of our country being successful again. When we examine her test scores, we find out that she is not qualified for office, but nevertheless far more qualified than Crockett, who is a seriously low IQ individual, or Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country, which is actually pretty much true. Everything I've seen of her, she just like whining about how terrible America is and how great her country is, which she says, yet the failed country that she comes from doesn't have a government, is drenched in crime and poverty, and is rated one of the worst in the world, if it's even rated at all. How dare the mouse tells us how to run the United States of America. I'm assuming the mouse there is Omar. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that would be that should be the mouse.
We're just now coming back from the radical left experiment with Sleepy Joe, Kamala, and the auto pen in charge. What a disaster it was. AOC should be forced to take the cognitive test that I just completed at Walter Reed Medical Center as part of my physical. As the doctors in charge said, President Trump aced it, meaning I got every answer right. Instead of her constant complaining, Alexandria should go back home to Queens, where I was also brought up, and straighten out her filthy, disgusting, crime-ridden streets in the district she represents and which she never goes to anymore. This is like his own War and Peace like manifesto here. This is pretty entertaining to read. She better start worrying about her own primary before she thinks about beating our great Palestinian beating our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, which is funny because Chuck Schumer, if I'm not mistaken, is a Jew. So it's kind of funny he called him a great Palestinian senator, whose career is definitely on very thin ice. She and her Democrat friends have just hit the lowest poll numbers in congressional history. So go ahead and try impeaching me. Make my day. I think I'm going to start reading through his tweets during the day just to have a little bit of comic relief.
Yeah, they're quite entertaining. I think the only thing that could have made this better if you ended it with "Thank you for your attention to this matter." But yeah, Trump likes to troll. He does that a lot. It's fun to follow him and just watch him troll. So yeah.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, he does have people that help type out what he's tweeting or putting out the truth. But they're in front of him, so they'll have a team of people that'll go through and like have ideas, and then they put it together for like what he's actually going to message to the public. So it's not just him. Obviously, he doesn't type that quickly.
Yeah, there was a documentary done on X about the they were following the Trump. They were embedded in the Trump campaign during the 2024 election, and they were there with the whole assassination attempt and everything. So, highly recommend checking out that documentary. It's really neat in kind of the inside behind the scenes of the of kind of what's going on in the Trump inner circle.
There was one comment that he said in here that really resonated with me. And he said, the Democrats aren't used to winning, and she can't stand the concept of our country being successful again. The reason why this resonated with me, here, I'm going to close the screen now. Well, I'll be back on full, is, I mean, personally, here's what I'm sick of. I'm sick of what I would call agents of woke who are masquerading as red pillars. And they're finding any excuse as to why they shouldn't be thrilled at a swift and successful end to this conflict. Like there are things that we have seen with this administration that has blown my mind. And we could get all into it again. The border and the ICE and getting rid of the illegal immigrants, getting rid of woke culture, getting rid of the LGBTQ flags, the executive order for the what constitutes a man and a woman, and putting in the health agenda, Roe versus Wade, all this stuff that's happened. And what I get really sick of are individuals who as far as I'm concerned, they really expose themselves, that they're not real truthers. They're in here to whine and complain about how much they have a disdain, they have baggage, they hate the government, they want it gone, this kind of stuff. And they're like against chemtrailing, all that kind of stuff. But if the government, if your governor, John Q, of Florida, would be like, hey, we're not going to allow chemtrailing anymore, they're like, they're all upset about this because they can't be happy about it. They can't be happy that there's less babies being aborted. They can't be happy that we didn't enter World War III, that this was a successful in and out mission. You ended the whole narrative, as you guys said it, and they can't be happy about this. They want bloodshed. They want millions of deaths. They won't frame it this way, but that's what they want, because they want to justify their own conspiracy about how this is, Satan needing blood. And that's true. I mean, I believe the reptilians need their blood, right? But you got a situation where he's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to kill millions of people, hundreds of millions of people in the next World War. And I'm thrilled by that. And I mean, hopefully other people are too. What else can we cover tonight? What else can we talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that hopefully people are learning, hopefully normies are learning, so to speak, with like the Tucker's interview of Ted Cruz and what have you. I hope people are waking up to the dangers of bad theology and the dangers of bad eschatology, because bad theology and bad eschatology. Imagine if it was Ted Cruz who was our president, right? He was running for president back in 2016. One of the people that was running against Trump in the primary. Imagine if that theology was in the White House making those decisions. You know what I mean? So Yeah, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
true about the eschatology and the theology, because everyone takes in information through that filter, or people who follow the scripture. And if you're looking for the second coming, that's kind of like looking for the Revolutionary War. These are things happened in the past, and so it's definitely going to throw a person off and prevent them from seeing things in the proper context.
Somebody wrote here. I'll put up on the screen. I can't pronounce her name or his name, her name. I'm sorry, I don't know. Shora Nikravesh said, "What do you think about Trump's remark about buying 5 icebreakers?" I don't even know the context on that.
I don't either.
I heard him talking about it. I thought it was one icebreaker and it's a used one, but I don't know I don't know what for, or what's the purpose of it other than breaking ice.
So right now I'm kind of a little off topic, but this week I'm writing, the new paper I'm writing is on St. George and connecting how I believe he is Elijah, Phinehas, and maybe John the Baptist. I'm not even sure on that, but I'll put some, evidence out there and people can decide for themselves. I'm a little uncertain about that. But tomorrow we'll be going through Matthew 3 Friday night, and we'll be talking about John the Baptist again. And I'm going to be showing some of my stuff from my St. George paper that I'm writing. It's a very exhausting read because, writing it out, it's like over 100 pages. Like it's just a lot of research. I'm really trying to make this a grand slam that St. George is Elijah coming in to initiate the millennial kingdom. And this is why he was recognized all over the world. But anyways, I digress. There's something that I read a few years ago that has radically changed my opinion about morality. And it is through the teachings of Elijah through rabbinical literature, and also even through the Quran, when Elijah appears in the Quran, and they're all the same stories. And it's basically this. There's some like rabbi, he's in the ghetto. It's like 200, 300 AD, 300 AD. And all of a sudden, he can't believe his eyes. He sees Elijah. Elijah is walking down the street. And he goes up to Elijah and he's like, dude, you are the prophet. I want to learn from you. I want to be a disciple of yours. Teach me. And Elijah's like, okay, cool. All right. So, and there's actually these actual rabbis that claim that they, encountered him. And he'd be like, okay, cool. Here's the condition. You can be my disciple. You can follow me around, but on one condition, you can't talk. You got to shut up. Don't talk. Don't say anything. Don't respond. Like, I'm going to do some things, and I'm telling you now, you're going to be morally appalled at what I'm going to do. Do not ask questions about why I'm doing it. If you violate that contract, I will immediately leave you. And they're like, okay, cool. So they go, and all of a sudden Elijah, like he kills this boy, and the rabbi is just like, he's shocked, like, I can't believe my role model just killed this little child. And then Elijah goes and he sinks a ship, and then he goes and like he builds this wall, and there's like this treasure in it, and all these starving people can't discover the treasure. Finally, the rabbi is, and you see these same stories in the Quran. And finally, the rabbi is like, he's like, I can't take this anymore. I thought you were a moral person. I can't stand by this anymore. I have to speak out. And Elijah's like, okay, you just violated your contract. I'm gone. You can no longer be my disciple, but let me explain to you why I did what I did. And he would, in every example he would give, like, the boy died, for the benefit of all these other people. In one example, he goes and there's a starving husband and wife, a very old couple, and they have a cow, and he goes and kills the cow. And they're just so like the rabbi is so upset that he killed this cow. And he's like, no, you don't get it. Like, his wife was going to die that day, and I cut a deal where we killed the cow instead of the wife, and now he gets to keep his wife. You couldn't see that at the time. You thought I was doing this horrible deed. Oh, I built that wall because this rich man was there, and I did not want him to discover the treasure, and I wanted someone else to get it another time. And so you get this idea that Elijah is this agent, this angel walking around. He's an immortal, and he has a sight that he can see beyond time itself. He has hindsight, he has foresight, he can see in the future, the past, he can see how everything is coming together to this one singularity event, and he's going around and working for the benefit and the good of people. But we as mortals, we look at this and go, this is evil. Like, we cannot see how this can possibly work for the good. And this is the moral lesson in this that has really caused me to go and look at the world stage and go, you know what, I'm just going to shut up about this because if I go out there and I condemn something, and I go like, oh yeah, Trump cannot, you might point out like, yeah, Trump is haughty, he's proud, whatever, things like that. Like, oh, this guy cannot possibly do anything good. Yah cannot personally work through this guy. He can't work through America. America's doomed. Yah has abandoned us. This is the little season deception. We're left to Satan. He's running everything. And when we go out there and we do stuff like that, it's like we are not allowing Yah to actually work. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he's going to work despite us. He's just not going to involve us in it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, okay, fine. Like, you're pushing against what I'm doing. I'll just go do this anyways, and you could just go over there and bicker on social media about it. This has caused me to really just slow down and go, I'm immortal. I can't see outside of time. I don't know where this is going. And for me, I'm talking about this now because this Iran situation, I know that, we don't know what's going to happen next week. This has just blown my mind. It's seeing something going into this. Everyone's like, Trump, you campaign on this idea of no new wars. You weren't going to bring us into wars. I can't believe you're doing this. You're being drugged on a leash by Israel, your employers. We knew it all along. And then you come out the other end and you're just like, dang, I can't believe that just happens so perfectly. And it wasn't like all the fear mongering was incorrect. It was not true. There was no Third World War, no American deaths, no regime change. Amazing. So hopefully everyone kind of understands where I'm coming from on this now, that I personally think, and I'm not calling myself wise, but I think that a wise person understands that, first of all, you cannot teach Yah anything, and his wisdom and his knowledge is unsearchable, and his ways are unknowable. Like, that's not completely true. We can know his ways, we can know his Torah, but we cannot know it in a way that we can exhaust it. It is completely impossible for us ever to do. And it's amazing just to sit back and watch this story unfold. Would you guys agree? Would you guys disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before, but I think, when you focus on what the enemy is doing, you end up becoming discouraged, right? But when you focus on what Yah is doing, then you become encouraged, and it's a lot more fun to follow along with the events and try to look, okay, try to figure out. That's kind of how I approach it. Is I try to figure out, okay, what is Yah doing? Like, can I figure this out? And that's kind of the perspective that I look at things through.
All right. Well, now that we've kind of, not to go back to where we were talking about earlier, I did want to end it on, maybe this is questions for you, Matthew, before I ask the question, let me just say that, and I'm not throwing you under the bus, Matthew. I know that like last, was it April? Was it March or April? I even lost track of time now. It was, we were supposed to go through maybe the 10 days of darkness, right? And every year it seems like April rolls around and, maybe we're going to go in the 10 days of darkness. And I was getting kind of like pissed because you're like, not at you, but I was like, I was getting ready to go on a boat across the Atlantic where I wasn't going to have any internet whatsoever. And you're like, it's about to happen any day, the 10 days of darkness. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, dude. Like of all the times in my life, because, if anyone out there doesn't know what the 10 days of darkness is, it's supposedly where all social media, cell phones, internet, TV, whatever, if you turn it on, it's just going to be playing the the trials, like convicting, you know, the Hillary Clintons of this world, showing all the crimes out there, more like beyond what any of us can imagine how bad it is. And they're supposed to just kind of expose it out there one after the next. I mean, basically the client list, the Epstein client list is like sandbox. I mean, it's just like, why are we even talking about this at this point? Like, it's supposed to be so big. And I'm just like, if they're going to be doing this for 10 days and I'm on a boat with no internet, I'm going to just be like so upset, like for the rest of my life, you know, like 40 years from now, people are like, where were you, Noel, in April of 2015, the 10 days of darkness? Be like, on a boat, missed the whole thing. You know, but anyways, Matthew, what is your, obviously it didn't happen. Maybe next year, who knows? I'll make sure I'm not on a boat in April, I think.
Yeah, I would say that my take on this is, I mean, I still believe it's going to happen because the 10 days of darkness in that scenario is pretty well described as you put it. But I see it as the only scenario where the people walk through it. And so they see it for themselves, but you have to show them. But also, just because you walk through it doesn't mean you understand it. And we've been walking through this for years, like going through the movie ourselves. But when this exposure happens, like if we were to prematurely, and I do mean this in every sense of the word, if we were to prematurely expose the Epstein files, it would not have the same impact as waiting until the proper time where everything happens all at once. It needs to happen all at once. When Q puts it in saying, we're saving Israel for last, very important reason that we never mention it one time. And saving Israel for last means the corruption that is in Israel, not that it's all corrupted, to clarify. But the corruption in the deep state that's in Israel is going to be the very last thing that happens. And I think when you take it to be biblical, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. I mean, take that take that into a little bit of context, out of context, and apply it to the situation. This starts everything. Everything has to happen all at once. One of the Q posts mentions 3 movies. It's FISA, Pizzagate, and another one. In essence, it's basically everything has to be exposed all at once. The movie itself plays all at once. The 10 days is a 10 days of media darkness. And so basically you're cutting off the mainstream media, the fake news. Nobody has access to this. And that's absolutely necessary because in order to create a momentum where this never happens again, you have to show the people simultaneously where you can use the same thing that multiplied the effect of the lies from the fake news is the common acceptance and the groupthink, if you will. But groupthink is, you know, bad left as it is, but if you present the truth and the people as a group like accept what is given to them, then more of that will exponentially increase the ability for the normies, so to say, to actually pick up on what's actually going down. It's not saying everything is going to be exposed or everything's going to be revealed. It's one of the very important things is Q says the choice to know will be yours. So that means not everything's going to get revealed to everyone, right. But I believe everyone will have access to that information. So like if you want to see some of the truth of like behind the scenes, who are the actors? If you don't want to go there, some of that won't be out there. But I do believe the people that are going to be telling us these things are the people who have been under witness protection, faked their own deaths. Robert Williams, JFK Jr., Elvis Presley, a number of them. I could just rant off, and who knows which one of those are correct. But like, if you do know a thing about the deep state, and you're in Hollywood and you're a celebrity and you know these things, number one, you're a voice that's trusted through, you know, American culture or wherever you're from, and you're a voice that people can recognize. They can hear these bad things from, and then it's more trustworthy. On the same token, if you know something's going on, the deep state's not going to let you survive that. Like if you know too much, they kill you, you know. So then if going through the story of how JFK Jr., as you can do the own research, short story is they had a plane it was going to detonate at a certain elevation. So they go ahead and set a Navy SEAL in there, have it detonate at the same time. He jumps out, black box, go ahead and record the same thing that was already pre-recorded. Very easy to fake your own death. When you know that there's a bomb on your plane, you have to die because you don't want to let them know that you know that. So you delay the schedule of when you're going out. Congratulations, there's Martha's Vineyard, perfectly executed. So everyone else that knew a thing or two either had to be taken out because they were planned on being taken out, or they just recognized that you would be more valuable as an asset, like I believe Robin Williams was. You fake your own death, you go through that. And I don't mean to make light of this, so those who believe that, he went through what he went through, supposedly. But if you take into consideration, if he was more valuable for this point in purpose to express all the deep truths that have gone on where everybody's listening and they need to have a voice that they can recognize and that they love and are familiar with, that's where that role comes into place. And that's part of the whole thing with the 10 days of darkness. The media is taken care of, it's gone, and then exposing some of, not all, of what's been going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about, the truth, as you guys all know, is that you can't force somebody to believe it. And there will always be people that are just be like, yeah, I'm not going to believe that. The thing is about the red pill is you can't really you can't offer someone a red pill unless you offer them a blue pill. I mean, you kind of have to, right? You can't shove it down someone's throat. If this, it really is, I mean, is the timetable here that Israel is going to be exposed within the next 3 years? I mean, we're on a timetable here, right? We got 3.5. We're I don't know what 6 months into his presidency now, about give or take. So we got 3.5 years left. That all of it's going to happen, unless we're looking at a like a third, or I guess a fourth term at this point.
Honestly, I'm thinking the 4th of July is going to be really good. Like, I really do think we are right on the cusp of everything like changing. Yeah. But then again, I've thought that so many times before, but there's a lot more evidence for it. In the Q poster, just the proofs are everywhere lately. I think it's like the following Friday, not this Friday, but there's like a reference to pictures of people with like Q symbols like on their shirts and whatnot, and that's in the Q post. So it's like it's coming out where it's like becoming more publicly acceptable to go through this. I think it was last Friday there was a reference to new Anons incoming, and so get ready to share with them directly like what's going on, because there's more people that are coming into the movement lately. So I think it's soon.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was really struck it took me a few years to appreciate Anon. And just so everyone listening, to this day, I still don't consider myself an Anon. I don't feel threats in having Anons on. It's all good. Love it. Love conspiracy. But I think, John Q, when you first entered my life, that Graham, I don't know what point you jumped on board. You were actually at my house at one time. There was that very kind of instrumental moment where I was talking to a guy named Nephilim Hunter, and he was like, he kind of schooled me on stuff. I'm like, okay, I think maybe you're right about, some of this, what you're saying. But I started really appreciating that wave that came in 2020, this huge wave of people waking up to the truth through QAnon. And it was just unbelievable how many were coming down the turnpike. And I had to tell myself, I'd been in this for several years, and I had to tell myself, well, I could have been proud and haughty and, oh, you guys are all deceived, but I couldn't believe how much truth they were just espousing. And it, made me kind of turn and listen a little bit more to what you guys were saying. I've said that too many times before. I will say this on a completely different side note, just a fun little fact. JFK Jr.'s wife was her name was Carolyn Bassett, I think it was. Let's see if I pronounce it, Carolyn Bassett or something like that. And if you actually, so they quote unquote died in the plane crash in 1997, and I'm with you guys, like that was completely obviously hoax. But I got married in 2002. It was 1999. I'm sorry, it was Diana that died in 1997. The plane crash was like the spring of 1999 or something like that. I got married to my wife.
Yeah, I think it was June 99.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was definitely 99.
Yeah, I had to correct myself because I remember I was graduating from high school in the summer of in June of 1999. It was right about then that it happened. But anyways, I married my my quote unquote high school sweetheart in 2002. I met her in 1997. Maybe that's why I said 1997 because that's when I met my wife. My point is that if you look at pictures of JFK Jr. with Carolyn Bassett, it looks exactly like my wife in 2002. So there's your doppelganger right there. I mean, they are doppelgangers. Look exactly alike. I'm waiting for the conspiracy to kick in that I'm actually. I don't think anyone could believe that I would marry JFK Jr.'s wife. I don't think that would be believable. But like where you match two people up and they're like an agent sharing two roles. Apparently, they're doppelgangers. So, maybe really I did, marry his wife. I don't know. But of all the different things people say about me out there, that one, if anyone catches on, I'd like that one to catch on. Let's have that one catch on. So, anyways, there is, we can end it now, guys, and we don't have to keep talking. We've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. You guys feel like you covered it tonight? Is there anything you would like to get off your chest? Any confessions? I mean, I already just said that my wife is the doppelganger of JFK Jr.'s wife. I mean, I've been wanting to confess that for like 7 or 8 years. I think this is the first time I ever said it on live camera. I was like, you know what? We're talking about JFK Jr.'s death. What was interesting too is I went to, I was in London because you guys know I'm in England right now. I was in London a few weeks back. I was walking past, kind of towards through Hyde Park, going up to Kensington Gardens. And right there, kind of the border of Hyde and Kensington, is the Princess Diana Memorial. And I looked into that, and I looked to my wife, aka JFK Jr.'s wife, who I'm now married to, and I said, OMG, that's a giant queue out there. It's a giant queue. And I looked, and there's like water around it, and I had to go to the satellite imagery. I looked down, and it's a big queue. And then, of course, John Q and I was showing that, and you showed me that JFK Jr.'s memorial site is also a queue. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but then I was at Stonehenge, and I'm thinking about this. Maybe it's just a bizarre coincidence. And I'm at Stonehenge. I'm holding my little daughter. If anyone goes on Discord, I have the picture there of my daughter. I'm holding her at my 2-year-old daughter. I'm holding her at Stonehenge. And I looked, I'm like, I think this is a big queue. So I did like a satellite. I kind of looked at, aerial footage. And I think it's a big queue there as well, like the sidewalk, the way they built it. Just throwing that out there. So,
you're gonna start seeing we're rubbing off on you're gonna start seeing queues everywhere. Do you? Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch logo, like that's a queue.
Oh yeah, that is too.
Wait, Michael Jackson and Q what?
The Neverland Ranch logo.
Oh, is it a queue?
Yep.
Of course,
it's obvious. There's no debate on it.
Okay, I want to touch on this just a second because obviously Michael Jackson totally did not die when he did. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on Michael Jackson and how he plays in the queue. There was something. Oh yeah, you are rubbing off on me. So I'll give you an example. I'm at a pub here, and I love the way they're not into the tips. I like tipping waitresses and waiters back home. I'm not into the tipping culture in America, how it's like you gotta tip your grocery store clerk now. Everybody wants a tip, but here it's not a tipping culture. Like you talk about no tax on tips, they're like, what are you talking about? You don't tip here. So you go and you pay before you get your food. When you order your food, you pay for everything, which is great. You just leave when you want. So you go up to the bar to order your food, and they're like, what table are you at? As they bring it out to your table. And I'm actually telling them, I'm at the Q table. And they're like, what are you talking about? Table 17. I'm at table 17. But I started seeing this everywhere. And like in the story, the novel that I wrote, which isn't released yet, the dog, the whole joke in there is that the dog, he has no name. The guy doesn't know the name of the dog, but on his collar, it just says 17. So he's the Q dog, So yeah, you guys have rubbed off on me, and I'm putting it everywhere now. And the Q dog, actually, he's a pivotal part to the kind of the Elijah experience of being outside of time and being able to maneuver inside time and actually, do something in a kind of a Calvinistic predestination way. So
You
yeah,
brought
so
up a question earlier, so I wanted to tackle that one. I want to start with the man in the mirror. So Michael Jackson, you have Michael Jackson, you have Princess Diana, and you have JFK Jr. And when we take these three, there is a rumor within our circles, not only that they exist, but they have very important roles. And it's very curious. I say that with a Q intentionally. It's very curious that all three of those individuals, with the place of remembrance, so to say, have images of Q viewable from, the sky, the satellites, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And those three roles, Princess Diana is meant to take on the royalty. Michael Jackson is meant to take on the celebrities, and JFK Jr. is meant to take on the politicians. And so you have those three really strong segments of where the control is. And if you consider that we fight against powers and principalities, these are the ones that are controlling through the rule of Hashatan. And it's the deep state, and who's going to be the one to say, like, hey, look, I know what you've done. You're guilty of this. Those are the three that are going to be the judge and the executioner, in a sense. So you have JFK Jr. for the politicians, you have Princess Diana for royalty, and you have Michael Jackson taking on the celebrities. And so that's why I believe they all have the cube scene from above.
Okay, stop there. So really quickly, does Sylvester Stallone ring a bell? Does he come into this?
Yeah, I think so. There's
let me before you answer, let me just say, okay, Michael Jackson. So obviously everybody knows about it. It started, I think, after he came out with his Dangerous album. I think maybe the rumors started coming out then. By the time he came out with his History album, like, it was a bunch of charges coming out, and from then it just kind of went on with the child molestation. So are those all like media attacks on him that are unwarranted at all? Like, what are you guys' thoughts on that in the Anon camp?
Michael Jackson, Sony battled against Michael Jackson for millions and millions of dollars, and they put that on him. And I don't know if they put on all that stuff with like the children that was bad onto him for that reason, or because he knew what was happening with all the child sex trafficking. He was one of the good guys, and in order to get him out of the way, they would go ahead and put basically project what they do onto him. So that's a little bit of what I want to say there.
Sure. Okay. So, all right. The reason I brought up Sylvester Stallone was because didn't Trump put him like on his like Hollywood? I don't know what, I don't even know what he calls it, like the Hollywood Trump team or whatever. Isn't Sylvester Stallone on it?
Yeah, like so there was during the 2016 campaign, there was Trump posted a meme of himself as Pepe the Frog, with the deplorables. It was I think Sylvester Stallone was in that. There, a couple others, but it's basically, was it not the A team, but might have been the A team. I can't remember. But anyways, it was the deplorables, and Trump was was depicted as Pepe the Frog. So yeah, I think there's been some interesting. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I just remember there's been a lot of things. Like there was a hat at one point that Sylvester Stallone posted of himself wearing a hat with a Q on it and stuff like that. So there's been some interesting things there.
Now, in terms of a really quick question, because you have my interest now. We're totally changing topics now, because you got my wheels turning, Matthew, here in real time, because I have a lot of notes. I've been wanting to write this Michael Jackson article for years, and I've never really been able to figure it out. And I feel like you kind of just helped me take a huge leap forward here, because I have a whole thing on his Captain EO. I have a paper out there that I want to expand on Captain EO, and it's clearly a message of Freemasonry. I mean, it's clearly Freemasonry. So, like, if I could, and I'm thinking out loud right now. I'm not putting you on the spot, but if I could show you that Captain EO. If anyone doesn't know, that was the Disneyland. It was done by what's his name? Francis Ford Coppola, actually, and George Lucas, but Francis Ford Coppola actually directed it. It was like a 15-minute movie or something like that. You went in with the 3D glasses, and he does his little owl, and he dances the bad guys in submission. Like, if I could show that is a clearly like Masonic message, what would be the official response to that? Just off the top of your head, if you have one. If you don't, that's fine. It's okay if you don't. If you don't want to talk about Michael Jackson, we don't talk about Michael Jackson. But
I'm curious, and I'm looking forward to what you'll actually bring to the table on that one.
Well, I already have a whole thing on. I mean, Michael Jackson was the master of disguise, right? And he would, some of his friends would talk about how they would go out with Michael Jackson. He would be like some white guy, like some big fat white guy, like an old balding white guy, whatever. And they would just be trying not to laugh their butt off. And they couldn't believe it that he would just be going in public and nobody knew it was Michael Jackson. Like, he was the master of disguise. And so famously, Michael Jackson actually did not show up to the premiere of Captain EO. Everybody was there but him. And I surmised that he was there. Like, I totally believe he was there. I think he was either standing in the crowd or something like that. Like, that was Michael Jackson. He was the master of disguise. But yeah, I mean, like the whole, if you guys remember, like the Pepsi fire that burned his hair off in the 80s, I think that was a hoax. I think that was just it was all part of, like, just, Michael Jackson was really big on putting really freakish stories out about himself. He would have like the puppet that would sit on the plane next to him, or he had like some frozen this frozen chamber and things like that. And they were all things that he was planting into the media himself to kind of like make fun of himself. It was very weird, the whole thing. So he's a guy who I've never really figured out. And the reason I brought up Sylvester Stallone is that he was the one guy, I got this interview with him where he called Michael Jackson a master wizard. That's what he said. He said he was a master. He said he was one of the greatest wizards of all time. And I thought that was interesting for Sylvester Stallone, after Michael Jackson had already supposedly died, for him to come out and say that. So, and then of course, there's the footage of, some people think that at his funeral, he was the blonde lady in the red dress. I don't know, but I do think he was the old fat white guy at the wedding of his niece. Like, the footage, I think that was totally, I look at that like that's totally Michael Jackson. He was there at the wedding. But anyways, yeah, interesting stuff, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and close up shop tonight, unless if you guys have something you want to add to all this.
Just wanted to correct the record. It wasn't Sylvester Stallone in the meme itself. Yeah, I'll go ahead and present my screen and show you the actual meme. Let's see. So here's the meme. It's just taken from The Expendables, which of course the character that is now Trump's face was Sylvester Stallone. So that's where I kind of got confused there. But Sylvester Stallone himself is not depicted in the meme.
So you know what I'm going to have to go back and do now is I'm going to have to, because I put a lot of work into the cover tonight, but I feel like I'm going to have to go back now and edit in Michael Jackson into the background, or Sylvester Stallone, or something like that. So, or maybe just put a big fat Q back there. I don't really know. All right. I enjoyed this, guys. Enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully this was enlightening for anyone who chose to listen in. And I know that, these aren't the most popular conversations that I have on Tuck, but I really, really I've always enjoyed politics. I've never enjoyed I've never understood why some people just makes them miserable. I'm always kind of a little, I think, emotionally detached from it in a way. And I think maybe John Q or somebody said that at the beginning tonight, where I was able to, now it'd be very different. I think that if the bombs were hitting outside my window, I might be in a different state of mind, but just to, to be able to kind of look at things that are happening in the news and go, you know what, I'm going to sleep fine tonight. I can, I don't need to get emotional about this. I can just kind of see it through to the end and then kind of look at it in hindsight and kind of come to some conclusions. And I think it really helped me out in this scenario. So in this situation. So, yeah, we'll do this again. It's been a while since we've done this. Well, I guess it hasn't been that long, 2 or 3 months since the Bitcoin episode, but we'll do this again, guys. So, oh yeah, Lou Fatron, you said, yeah, the burn victim guy is kind of creepy, but it's one of his best characters. I totally forgot about the burn victim guy. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's me. But I know the way. Shout out to them.
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned that the burn victim Michael Jackson helped as a character he dressed up as, and it's like really freaky with his eyes, and it's so obviously like a mask kind of thing. But with like the whole backstory of being a burn victim, you can kind of like see it as is. I wish I had a quick snippet of it, but yeah, I think it's one of his best roles that he plays.
Yeah, and he came on like right after he died. Didn't he go on Larry King? It's been a while since I've seen the footage, but I think that was Michael Jackson as the burn victim guy on Larry King. I thought that the most, if I can say this word, the most ballsy of all celebrity death hoaxes, where they came out and played a different character afterwards, actually goes to David Bowie after he died, and he goes on as a make-believe record producer named Jack something or other, and it's clearly David Bowie. If anyone wants to look it up and watch the footage, and he's going on there to talk about how awesome David Bowie is, and he's just like talking about himself and his own music, and it's like, clearly, dude, like, you're not fooling anybody. You're David Bowie, make-believe you're a record producer now. Like, nobody knows who this guy is. Nobody's heard about him since. But anyways, all right.
So,
on that note, we're gonna
Dave. That's the name of the burn victim. Dave.
Yeah, the burn victim. Dave. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at all this stuff. It's in my notes though. I am one of these days right now. I am like 50 papers behind right now because I'm in Europe and I'm trying to do like work on all the cathedrals and all the different elements here. But when I get home, I am determined I'm going to do my Michael Jackson piece based on what we talked about tonight, because that's really interesting. Maybe we could find like some crazy time travel elements or something to it. But all right, guys, good night. Let's do this again. Thanks for being on.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.